Hello, and welcome back to the BFF podcast. I'm Ann Duskus of Studio Duskus, and here with me is my co-host.
It's me, Vic from C'est La Vic. What's up, everyone?
Hello.
How's it going, Ann?
Good. We literally, before we jumped right in, we just blabbed about random stuff.
Yeah.
For like 5-10 minutes.
Nothing and everything.
I mean, maybe we should cut some of those as our like bloopers.
We should.
Although, do we talk smack?
I don't know if it's interesting. I have no idea.
I know.
We'll look back on this.
Okay.
Yeah. we say like the darnest things, you know?
Yeah. What's up, Vicky? What's
up?
do we want to talk about today? Okay, I'm like so curious because, okay, listeners, if you haven't tuned in, well, if you're tuning in for the first time, sometimes we're kind of prepped for a topic. Like, okay, we've been thinking about this, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then today's topic, though, Vicky's just like, yeah, what do you think about this? I'm like, yeah. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, should we pick a direction? Because if we don't and we're not aligned, because today is one of those days where we're not very, like, in the same wavelength, like,
it's
are we
true.
gonna get in trouble? But she's like, you know what, let's just go. So today's topic, like, we haven't really thought much about it, but it seems interesting enough to where we should just,
I mean, I feel like between me and you, we can talk forever on anything.
like,
It doesn't
candidly
even,
about
like the topic doesn't even have to be, the topic is not important. It's really that we just go off and like egg each other on, and then it's this echo chamber of like craziness. This topic I texted Ann because I randomly came up with it. So I've been on a little hiatus because, you know, like, as you guys know, I've traveled back to Toronto a while ago for 3 weeks, and then I came back for a couple weeks, and then I've been in Hawaii getting my tan on for a couple weeks. And so I literally have just had this huge break, and it's been really hard to be productive.
Wait, can you hold it right there real quick?
Yes.
What Vicky is not saying or mentioning is between the time that she's in Toronto to her time away for vacation, she cranked out a huge project that was like concepted, like created it, got it shipped before she took off, all in 10 days, which is insane.
Thank you.
No brands, this is not how it typically work, but
No, I mean, we make it work. Yes. It's very important to preface that by saying this is not the best way to work, but
yes,
we do a good job with the time that we have.
Right, but then
So
it's
it was
always
kinda
like,
crazy.
okay, like we could do so much more if you give me 2, 3,
Exactly,
4 more weeks.
exactly.
But anyways, she did it, and then she got it cooked, and then took off her vacation. So it's like she didn't just went from like being away from one place to the other. She actually cranked something really huge out, and then she left.
Thank you. My sister's always got my back, you guys. But literally, okay, so I'm on this like break, and I have refrained from being on social media. Like I typically say, if it wasn't that majority of my work is on social media, I probably wouldn't go on as frequently as I do, you know? So I took this like long break from social media, and then, you know, I was on Instagram for a really long time. And then of course, like throughout my break, you know, I would hop on for a little bit just to like check on things, or like if I'm bored, just for a few seconds. And so this topic, this text message that I sent her was basically like, bored of customs, ? Mm-hmm. So that's today's topic, is like, am I getting a little bit bored of customs? And I think this can mean so many things, which is why, you know, Anne's like, I don't know if we're interpreting the same way, you know, if we're going to be talking about the same things, but kind of like, you know, it's been 3 years since we started doing this full time, and I'm kind of tired of, I'm just going to say it, the same
Dun, dun, dun.
things, you know, like the same like customs being done over and over and over again. And maybe further in on the episode, I will tell you exactly what I'm bored of. But right now I don't have the you know, balls to do it. But you know what I mean? Like, do you look at customs, or whether it's like looking at other people's customs, or if it's like working on our own stuff, you know? I feel like repetition is not my strong suit. Like I cannot do the same thing over and over and over again. I get really bored, which is why, you know, I don't work in corporate, you know, and I try to do my own thing. So yeah, I just have this like feeling of like, what if I get bored of what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. Or what if I'm already bored with what I'm seeing online, that I'm like, how much longer can I do this for? And this is a huge question because, you know, I'm taking a huge step in my business very soon.
Girl.
Right? So like the combination of this mix is just like the recipe for nightmares and overthinking. Watch that last overthinking episode. But yeah. Do you share these same sentiments where...
Well, okay, so when you text me that, and I literally just responded, yeah.
She's just like, yeah.
What?
Let's go. But like, go where? I don't know.
Yeah, but then after I texted you that, I was like, are we going to get canceled? And two, what are we talking about? Mm-hmm. So is it in the context of like, so when you texted me that, I was like, okay, so are we talking about... Are we bored of customs? Are we bored of seeing other people's customs? Or is, generally speaking, the industry is tired of customs?
Everything, please. Up to interpretation.
Right?
Whatever you think.
So, okay, maybe let's start from like very high level, right? Like industry-wide. Mm-hmm. Yes or no, do we feel like people are bored of customs? I think my answer is no.
Okay.
At this moment in time. What about you?
I'm trying to figure out if that's true, because I think, you know, because we are on social media, we're pretty sensitive about like numbers, right? So the number of likes, the number of posts that come up, statistically wise, like just a feel of it. I think certain customs still get a lot of likes from viewers, but there are also customs that I've seen that, you know, I would consider a good job done, like a job well done, but it doesn't get as much love. Mm-hmm. So I'm questioning whether it's sort of this idea of like, yeah, we've seen that before, so like what's next, like, you know.
So then is the question more like, are people bored of customs as art, like custom that's creative more for like as an art piece, or are people bored of customs as something you can wear? Because to me, I think I guess like maybe they can be one and the same, but then they can also be different. Mm-hmm.
See, I don't know. See, then there's like, you know, customs to wear, like orders, right? In terms of like, let's say an individual wants to commission a piece for them to wear daily, versus like an art piece that they want to appreciate and see or own even. Like there's so many categories of all of it.
Yeah. Okay, it's interesting because I don't think generally speaking people are bored of customs yet. But I think the majority of the people who are liking, for example, like an Instagram post of someone's custom, mm-hmm. they appreciate more of the entertainment value mm-hmm. that's attached to it. For example, like BTS mm-hmm. or, you know, something crazy like, and this is not a custom, but like the big red boot, you know, it's like somebody putting it on and having a terrible, like a hard time pulling it mm-hmm. off, you know, mm-hmm. and it's like, so like, I think there's still like a lot of like buzz around sort of this like custom that's more of an art piece. I think people are very entertained by it. Mm-hmm. But of those people who are willing to pay for it, 5% maybe. Mm-hmm. 5%.
Has that percentage changed, do you feel like?
For me, no. Yeah. Because, and I think, again, it's me and my personal, like, sort of what I've experienced as a business owner, because you know that, like, I don't, like, you touched on it earlier, like, we both get bored doing the same thing over and over again. So we don't do drops with the hopes of, like, I hope 20 people sign up, because mm-hmm. for those, like, because for us, that just doesn't do it for us. Like, mm-hmm. we don't want to get into doing production work. Yeah. And so because of that, my clientele has always been very exclusive in the sense that like I'm always doing one-offs, which means one-offs are going to be a lot more expensive than
Absolutely.
I were to do 20 pairs of the same thing. And so for me, that haven't really changed, you know?
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I don't know if like I did feel like there was this sense of hype and it was like a novelty type of thing when, you know, during the quarantine times, you know, when everybody was at home and like customs was suddenly like there was definitely a boom, you know,
because all of a sudden people who weren't doing custom shoes before are all of a sudden getting into it.
Right. And it's like maybe there were like a handful of people that started doing it, and then during the pandemic everybody was doing it. Everybody and their mothers were doing it, you know? And then like it kind of came through in waves. You know, sneaker, like the whole sneaker industry was huge too and booming and all that. And then there were, you know, waves of like, I don't know, even that whole rit dye phase and stuff.
Coffee
and then
dye.
Right, coffee dye, tie dye, like during the pandemic kind of led to that,
huge.
right?
Yeah.
And so then, you know, now all of that's kind of like phasing out to me. So like what's next, you know? Like, yeah, we had Mischief. Mischief kind of made, you know, a little wave recently. But then like what's next in the world, you know? Like what else is new? What's keeping people like entertained? What's captivating their attention? Like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we talked about the big, like, high level. Like, generally speaking, do we think people are bored? I say no. What is
I say maybe. I'm trying to figure that out, which is why I have this question mark above my head.
And then, okay, then let's move on to the next. Are you and I
Bored of customs?
bored of customs? Like, okay, wait, hold on. I think I need to reframe that question. Like, are you and I bored of...
We quit, you guys. That's it. This is the end.
I'm not quitting. I don't know. Like, girl, like, you are quitting for the both of us. Okay? Like, I am not quitting yet.
It's just like, no, I do not. I'm not bored yet.
Invested
I want to
too
keep
much,
playing.
and you're about to invest. So, girl, we are not quitting, at least not for another 4 or 5 years. You heard it here first. Don't hold us accountable.
Yeah.
So let me reframe the question. So the question maybe is more like, are we bored of creating customs? Okay, so maybe it's a 2-part question. Okay, so are we bored of creating customs?
I would also say no, because I think like, you know, even me just staring at, so we're in our studio recording right now, and on our door we literally have Post-it notes of like ideas that we want to get around to. That's our like checklist of like these are the designs and the shoes that we want to do. We both have quite a significant list that we want to get through, you know? Like I've been working on my darn collection for forever. I still want to do it, you know? I'm still excited about it. I just think like, yeah, so for me and what I'm doing, I'm not bored. I do get bored when I have to do a lot of repetitive work. So I feel like if a project carries on for a really long time, the tail end of it does get a little bit like, okay, this is enough of this one. I need to move on to the next one. And recently I've been working on some longer projects, some longer collections. So, you know, that part of it is a little painful because I don't get it all out in one go. It's like a very like drawn out process. But in terms of like actual customs, I mean, I don't think so. But I think I'm challenged by the fact that the ideas can't be the same ones. I feel like for a while, you know, me and a lot of other people in my community, we were doing the exact same thing. There was like a lot of like, okay, here goes. There were a lot of like anime, you know, or a lot of like Disney characters, you know, and like iterations of that. Like people doing like, how could I do, for example, like a Little Mermaid, but do it differently, you know? But then like everybody does their own Little Mermaid, and it's like, oh, that's so amazing. That's incredible. Yeah. But then at the end of the day, it's like
it's
the
still
same
Mermaid.
thing. It
right.
kind of gets repetitive. And then, you know, people start branching out. And I think it's this like evolution of sneakers that's happening in front of us where people are like, okay, well, I want to stand out. So I'm going to make the shoe like Like, I'm going to go way off base and I'm going to add something to it so that the shoe looks completely different, you know? And then we have like really talented artists that are making shoes like into art pieces, right? That, you know, now that's kind of like a new subcategory of like customizing. Are we just making like display pieces and stuff like that? So I think we're all trying to it's like an arms race to kind of beat out this, like, how do you not get old doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's roughly how I feel.
Okay. So you're not yet bored, but you're just trying to figure out,
like, if everybody's bored of it, or like how much longer we can do this for, you know, in a business standpoint, I feel like, because I need to be able to project if, like, let's say I want to do this for the next 5 years, is there still going to be a lot of interest? And, you know, specifically, like, for example, I used to follow this channel on YouTube. It's a lot of people watch it. It's got a lot of followers. It's called Guga Foods, right? And so it's this guy who basically cooks like steaks mainly, or mostly. He does a lot of steaks in like many different ways, and he tries like a different rub on it, or he tries like a dry age, and then he dry ages with like butter or whatever. But like his production quality was really good, even starting from the beginning, you know? So I was like hooked, and I was like, oh, this guy's like, he's a personality, he's entertaining, whatever. And then it started getting old. So I started tapering off how much I was watching him, you know?
Because it was like the same thing.
It's the same thing. Like, how many times can you make a steak? Yes, that steak looks amazing. Yeah. I crave a steak. You know, I'm going to try like using some of these spices or whatever. And he does other things. Like he bakes. He does, like, if he does a hamburger, he'll make the buns and he'll have the recipe for everything. Like, I got to show you
everything's
this. Like,
from
production
scratch.
quality, is like very high. And, you know, it's like hype music. It's like all the things. And then I tapered off, and then I was like, okay, well, he does the same old thing all, like, every single time. I'm kind of bored of watching him. So I stopped watching him. But from when I started watching him to what he is now, his follower count is just growing and growing and growing. So I think there's like me tapering off, but then other people hopping on at the same time. Because like with his discovery, like he's getting new audiences all the time. And his content at the end of the day is like really high quality. So I understand what's happening. But like, I guess it's just, again, it's this like, I don't think I should be concerned whether other people are bored of custom, like what I do. I'm just trying to gauge the sentiment of, like, in general, is the world bored of customs?
I mean,
it's
I don't
very
think
vague.
so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, because I feel like this is no different from like any other DIY market. For example, and I'm just like totally spitballing, like quilting. Like, quilting is huge.
It's such a bad rap, but it looks like a lot of fun.
Dude, it's so much fun.
Yo, we would go into quilting any day.
Right.
Like,
you know, like the amount of people, it's like a cult thing. You know, the amount of people from like young to old are like they create like these amazing quilts, you know, with like amazing patterns and like
totally.
And they're like super interesting, right? And then but then it's like, but you know, like quilting never goes out of style. Like it will always be around. And then same thing can be said about like felting.
Right.
You know, like you can sit there for hours just watching someone take a needle, stabbing like, you know, fibers into like a sponge so then to make something.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know. I feel like what we do is no different from other custom industries. It's just that our canvas is on a pair of footwear. And then also, like, I think you and I are a little different because, again, like, you and I cannot speak to the people in our industry who does production work, right? So where they drop something and they take, like, orders of 10, 20, 30 pairs, you know, and we have peers who does that. And, like, that's why they want to do great, you know, because then their focus is on, like, I just want to make as much money as I can doing as many pairs as I can, right? And
like
not
they have to optimize number and
right,
I guess complexity or
exactly.
Yeah.
And then but then for us it's like we want to make one off our pieces, you know, that is that's wearable, but is really mostly a display case,
Mm-hmm.
like in a display piece. And so I think it's a little different. And I think, so I feel like our audience is a little different because of that.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think like the magic of social media really is that like, I don't, when you're watching things, you don't necessarily have to, like, let's say quilting, for example, you don't necessarily have to be into quilting to watch quilting.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that find it very entertaining or soothing or whatever, just to watch somebody do something.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know, Gordon Ramsay, or like a Top Chef. Like there was a while where I was like super into, the Bravo TV show Top Chef, where like you just watch these professional chefs compete against each other. And it went on for like, I don't know, 20 seasons, something like that, and like I was like religiously watching it, like when I used to watch TV, like for like 7 to 8 seasons straight, so I know all the chefs, I know all the restaurants, I know, and then, but it's like, it's the same thing.
It is the same thing.
Over and over again,
that's
just
what
with
I'm
different
wondering.
people.
Like, is it because, like, food is, like, a universal thing? Like, food will forever, recipes and stuff online, like, will forever be captivating.
Like, people will watch mukbang all day long.
Mukbang, cooking, like it's just flour. It's like, here, flour and sugar and eggs,
Yeah.
But I guess, like, that's true. I feel like creativity is not limited to, like, just those things. At the end of the day, you boil it down, it's all just like baking is just, flour, sugar, like varying those amounts. But it's like what's entertaining is really how the story is told and how it's presented to you.
Totally.
Right? So
okay, so I think I got it. I think what you're feeling is not so much like, are people bored, or like, are we bored? I think maybe the sentiment is more like, tell me if you agree, we feel like the footwear customizing world is a little stale.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Let me
Okay.
I'm gonna throw you under the bus a little bit, but not really. Okay.
Throw me under the bus.
Do you remember when we like we're always talking ish, okay, in the studio. We're terrible. But like I remember you telling me, for example, like if I've seen one customizer paint on a pair of shoes, I've almost seen them all. Like I'm not that interested. Like they all kind of look the same to you. If we did this exercise where it was like, okay, let me show you 5 pictures. Can you tell the difference? Can you tell who did what? And it's almost like we don't really have an identity because it's within, like, at least within my community, I can speak for my community, there's like too much bleeding into each other, we're all trying to figure out what our style is. We're all trying to like take inspiration, from each other, from the same things, so on and so forth. So I feel like there's only like a handful of people that I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, yes, this is from this artist. This is from this artist, and then everything else is a blur. Yeah. Right. So like I've said before too, like on Instagram, if I'm on Salevic account, like it's all sneaker stuff because those are the people I follow. And I'm like, swipe, 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 swipe. Whereas like my personal account's like other stuff that, like fashion or like quilting, arts and crafts, whatever, dogs, animals. So like that's where I get that, where it's like, why am I not interested in looking at the things that are already that are happening in my industry? Because it's like not that exciting. Yeah. And even somewhat like the whole, I guess even Nike with their like recent releases, I'm like, snooze fest. I said it. But like, like it's not that exciting. Like nothing new. Everything that's coming out, it's like the same thing, I guess, with Nike. Like that's kind of my beef with it all. It's like, oh, new colorways, like how many dunk colorways can you come up with, And it's like, it's kind of getting old. Yeah. Right? It used to be exciting where it's like, oh, this new drop, like I have to have it. But I almost feel like that has kind of disappeared for me. Where I don't desire that. And I'm hoping that in the custom world that it's like that's not what we're feeling. Where like somebody releases something and every artist, I truly believe, spends a lot of time creating that piece. But because it's like something we've seen 1,000 times, like people are just unimpressed, or like they're like, Cool. Like,
yeah.
what's next?
I
Cool.
think it's
like,
more that.
Are we just pumping out colorways, let's say, you know, quote unquote, when we're doing customs?
Yeah. And that's kind of like, okay, I see where you're kind of throwing me under the bus, but not throwing me under the bus. It's like, because that's my beef with it, with my peers, like who also do decon recon, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't want to look at it.
Right?
Oh my gosh, I said it.
That's what I'm saying.
Cancel me. Like, oh my gosh, I love you, friends. But you know
I love the people, and I love, you know, like the fact that people support us, and I love to be able to support back. And so I try my best to like and comment and stuff. But if it just doesn't excite us, it doesn't excite us, you know? Like that's just.
Yeah, and I think and this draws two conclusions for me. One is there is a place for every one of us as creators, designers, customizers in this industry, because there's a customer for every one of us.
Absolutely.
And my customer is different from Vicky's customer. Somebody's going to come to her is not going to come to me, and vice versa to everybody else.
And it's like different from someone that's directly parallel to like what you're doing.
Right. And so, and yes, like, I honestly feel like the industry is a little stale right now. Not just the customized industry, but like the overall sneaker industry. Because everything looks the same.
Yeah.
And then all the new brands who are coming out with the original silhouettes are trying to like copy 60% of the Dunk pattern pieces or an AJ1 pattern pieces. So it kind of looks like, you know, like something that's really hype, but not really hype. So they don't get sued for trademark infringement. And so, you know what I mean? So there's so many brands like that.
There's so many brands. Like you have an opportunity to come up with a brand new shoe that, you know, like this is your brand identity, right? Like come up with a shoe that doesn't look like a Dunk or an Air Force One or a Jordan of some sort, right?
But
like,
I think, and rightfully so, right? Because like there, just for years now, there's been so much hype around these three silhouettes that we just mentioned, and that's what people recognize, and so it's easy to sort of turn to those silhouettes and try to capture like some essence of the silhouettes to capitalize on those silhouettes in the original silhouettes. But then you end up, people who are used to seeing the AF1, the AJ1, the Dunks, like I can see from a mile away when a shoe is trying to mimic a part of any of those shoes. And so I'm like, no, I'm not gonna buy this, you know, because this is like, I don't know, like to me, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, so I think like I get why people do it, why brands do it, because they want to sell shoes at the end of the day. You know, it's a numbers game, but then at the end of the day, like they're also afraid to put a stake in the ground as to like, you know what, let's own something super original that nobody has. But then you risk like, you know, not having, you know, sort of this like popularity because nobody understands it, you know? So it's like, I get there's like a fine line to like, you know, kind of like to walk. But what was my second conclusion? My second conclusion is because the industry is really stale right now, in my opinion, I actually think there's a lot of opportunities for all of us.
Yes.
Because it's like, now is your chance. Now is your moment to like create something like so like, I almost feel like you don't have to try that hard right now at this moment in time to do something a little different that will catch somebody's attention because it's different from the same thing that everybody else is doing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why like the big red boot, it's like, wait, everybody's like head was in like, it has to look like a sneaker. It has to be a sneaker in order to be hype. But then the big red boot came out and I was like, oh, wait. Like we like things that are completely different and it can be successful. It just has to be done right. And that's like, I mean, at any scale, at the individual creator scale and at a company scale, I feel like it's the same struggle. It's like, how do you like differentiate yourself, right? But do it well enough such that a lot of people like what you do as opposed to being like, oh no, that design is like total trash. I would rather wear an Air Force One, you know, like that. Yeah.
I mean, Vicky, it's so interesting though, because I feel like you and I see it time and again that like, how good is something is so subjective, right? So like something that you and I think is like incredible. Mm-hmm. I mean, really rare that do we...
Yeah.
Like really rare do we think something is incredible because we're just such hard asses to please, you know? But like, you know, like you can do something and then somebody else can be like, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And you feel like you've only done 10% of what you can do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I think like we can sit here and be like, okay, how do you do something and then execute it well enough to where like somebody will like it? Like somebody will always like something, mm-hmm. even if it's like in our eyes it's not that great, mm-hmm. you know? Mm-hmm. So I just think that like, again, like there is a customer for everyone mm-hmm. in this industry, you know? And I think it's just like, you know what? Like if you believe your thing is good, like own it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And like...
And I think you, like, the first person you have to please is yourself.
Yes.
Like, in any scenario, you know? And, like, this kind of brings me back to, like that project that I did while I was back for a little bit, where mm-hmm. I was just like, I wish I had more time. Like, it's not good enough, you know? But, like, really... At the end of the day, you just have to answer to yourself. Mm-hmm. And actually, so one of our friends that shares like our workspace with us, she was telling me how she had like, you know, sort of her exhibit in her gallery, and she was doing a show. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, the thing that made it for her was this little girl. So she does jewelry. This little girl that bought her earrings and then talked to her after and like, heard her whole story, like was so fascinated with the way that this piece of jewelry was being made, and she like looked like she was going to cherish this like piece of artwork for her entire life, you know? And like that's what made it for her for this whole show. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like how many sales she had or like, you know, how many people showed up. None of that mattered except for, you know, that moment where there's like that little bit of pure genuine appreciation. Yeah.
I love that, and thank you for saying that, because I think time and again too, like like whether or not it's like I'm teaching, like I used to teach yoga classes, but so like in a room full of like 30 students, or even if it's like a shoemaking class in a room full of 40 students, mm-hmm. like what I've learned from those experiences is that, and this can be applied, like it's a parallel to like us against, not against, but like us in the industry right now and the people we're catering to, right? Like when you're showing your artwork, when you're teaching, when you're trying to talk to somebody, like of all the people that are there, you're really only talking to one or two people. Mm-hmm. Like, and yes, I can have a connection with everyone, but like at the end of the day, the one or two connection that after the event ends, mm-hmm. you walk away with like, I know I've made an impact on this person, or they made an impact on my life.
Yes.
And it's those one or two people that really matters out of that like entire 30, 40 people thing. Mm-hmm. And then so I think same thing applies with our industry. Yep. You know, like I'm not trying to please everybody. I'm trying to please that one or two people mm-hmm. that I know will inspire me to want to continue doing what I do.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the couple of people that get it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more you do it, you know, there will always be those people that get it and always like support what we do or like understand or want to learn more. And so that helps us to like produce more too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that like everybody is following, like we think that people are following us for the goal of like, oh, they like our stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh, they like the way we put out our stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, when like in reality, they might be following us for a very different reason.
Right.
You know,
there might just be a connection.
Right,
you know?
Exactly.
And you can't pinpoint it. You can't say it's like because of a shoe that you made or like whatever. It's like maybe it's something you said in your caption, or maybe it's just like the little way that you did something that people connect to.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that like it was especially evident like when when I was teaching yoga classes, and like I know there are people who are here for the physical exercise of it, and those are just like, I just want to here to exercise and I'm done, break a sweat. And then there are people who are here for like the spiritual side of aspect of yoga. You know, like I want to meditate. I want to like, you know, be able to like, you know, kind of ground myself, slow down a little bit. And then you have those people who are like, I just really like this teacher.
I'm here for you.
Right.
Yes.
I'm here for you.
Yes.
And then like, I would try as hard as I can to, you know, do all the things that you asked me to do. And like, you can just tell like those people are just like very focused on like everything. And then those are the people that like continues to come to your class.
Exactly.
And I think, and then so I get like, I just feel like everyone is there for a different reason. And then it's not, like we shouldn't assume why they're here, you know, and they're looking for something different.
Or
from
like
all of
try
us.
to cater to because we think that they need something,
Right.
you know, and
Exactly.
like change what you're doing for that.
Right.
Yo, did I tell you that I was going to this yoga class very frequently when I was living like in the north end of San Francisco, and the instructor looked exactly like Tom Holland, and every time he would teach, I'm like, Spider-Man's teaching me yoga, I have to show up. I literally would say I need to go to Spider-Man's class. So like,
See, that's the reason, like, right? But then
but he was really good. He
right,
was really
but
good.
it's like forget that like the physical, spiritual aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to Spider-Man's
Sometimes
class.
it's just like
You
a
know?
friendly connection, or like,
Exactly.
you know, going like interacting with this person
Yeah.
makes you feel a little bit lighter, you know, a little
Yeah.
bit more happy in your life.
Yeah.
You know, so
Or maybe it's an energy thing.
It's
Like,
an
I
energy,
resonate
totally,
with this person.
totally.
Like, everything else is just an extra thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like yoga's the same thing. Yoga's the same everywhere, let's say, in general, right? It's not the same, but like you can say yoga is basically the same thing. But like there are so many studios, there are so many instructors, there are so many different like what do you call it? Like schools of yoga, you know, and that people will feel connected to or are driven like or are like, you know, gravitated towards. And I guess that's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
With-
that's the same
what we
thing
do.
with like who you follow on Instagram or social media and who like and why you're there, you know? And I think like, so for example, there's this like YouTuber that I follow and she's this Korean American girl who lives in New York, Cafe Maddie, shout out. And like, she doesn't have a big production, but she has a ton of followers. And I'm following, and then like she does a lot of cooking, like recipes, of like food from her heritage, right? Like Korean food. But then I'm not following her for that because like
how many recipes have you made?
zero.
You know,
I'm not following for that. I'm following her because I like how openly vulnerable she is with her audience, and that's super inspiring to me, and that's why I'm there. I'm not there for the recipe and the food, which I know a lot of people are, but I'm there for like her and her vulnerability, you know? And so you know, so I just think that like there's something for everyone.
I think that's like so interesting that you said that, because I feel like this quote unquote boredom that I have with customization just in general is maybe just like me reflecting on like how I've been doing things in the last year. You know, maybe it's like time to shake things up, and it's not necessarily like doing something different, like let's say not doing customs, but it's rather like maybe how I film, or like, you know, changing things up, or how I tell my story, you know, or something like that. So I feel like it's like you saying that just inspires me to think like, what else can I do to make this more exciting for me, right? Again, like what was that joy that I initially felt when I was like, you know, working all the time, constantly feeling like, you know, I had to do Swoosh Sundays every single week. And like I had that motivation. It's almost like getting back into that, getting back into like loving working out, you know? It's like, I feel like I lost that little bit because I was taking, I think it was kind of drowning me out, or drowning a lot of other things that I felt like was important. And it was pulling me in all these directions. But now it's like, okay, well, how do we refocus into doing things the way that I like? You know, where I'm enjoying the process of it. And so maybe it's not boredom with like what we're currently doing, but how I'm doing it.
Yeah. Vicky, do you need to go back to listen to our overthinking episode?
This is all strategy, you know? Like, this is all like, because I'm thinking about my 5-year business plan right now. So I feel like I have to be a little introspective about, you know, where we're going, what it's going to look like, what, you know, I remember when I first decided that this was for me, what I did was like I was on Instagram all the time and I was just searching up stuff, like looking at what people were doing. And I was like, oh, there's this like lack of female creators in the sneaker customizing world. I'm going to fill that gap. Right. And now I feel like it's just like, okay, there's just so much, you know, there's this like ocean of people that do it. If you're saying like, oh, you want female creators, sure, they're a dime a dozen, you know?
No, they're not. No,
they're not.
They're not.
They're not all the same. But what I'm saying is like, okay, they exist. So, well, what next? Like, what other niche am I gonna fill? Or like, you know, what do I want to do to not necessarily stand out? Because I feel like we're kind of going extremes where people are like, oh, I want to stand out so badly, you know, I have to like completely change the way I customize. I have to like all these guns and whistles and things, right? Whereas like if I'm looking at like a list of my ideas, it's really like paring it back down and like making it simpler even. I feel like it got a little noisy because we overcomplicated things, you know, like we tried to do too much to compensate for, you know?
Speak for yourself, girl. Okay? Like, I mean, I honestly would love to. I think for you, like, no one asked, but
oh, please tell me.
But I feel like you could afford to do less.
Yeah.
And I say that because reality is sometimes I'm like, Vicky, you're doing too much. And I tell you that. I'm like, Vicky, you don't need to be doing all that, you know? But then, like, you can't help it because you have all these ideas that you want to execute. And in order for you to feel complete, you have to do all of them, right? Which is totally fine. But maybe it's like, if you pare down a little bit, what more can you do?
Exactly.
You know? And like, so I love to see you flip your shit upside down.
I mean, like what does that look like? I think that at the end of the day is what is like boggling my mind right now. It's like, what does flipping the shit mean for C'est La Vic? You know, like how do we turn this around? How do we like revolutionize? But then like go back to the good old days when everything was so simple, you know? Like I just want to be able to pump out a design in like 2 days. You know,
girl,
but like,
are you kidding me?
I know, but then we're sitting here like, oh, I'm gonna like hand paint like the whole panel, and then it's gonna have this like like girls doing paisley for like a week, you know.
So good,
but like it takes a lot of time, you know. Or like, I think I'm like reflecting on pain points. Like if I want to do YouTube, for example, like I can't possibly film like create a pair of shoes that takes me 2 to 3 weeks and then film the whole thing, and then post-production, because I have so much footage, takes another week. Like that's a 4 or 5 week ordeal, you know. That's not sustainable, right? So how do I keep things still, you know, true to myself but not do too much, you know? Girl. So it's like really dialing it back, and like it's a lot of self-reflection. Yes, overthinking, but like I think this is necessary at this stage because we need to strategize. This, you know.
Girl, I got it. Don't do the full pair. Just do one side, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Like, just do one side for content.
Yes. Like, it's so, but then you're like, when you're trying to put the shoe on, you're like, well, there's only one foot.
Oh, maybe you don't need to put the shoe on.
Like, maybe I need to do like two, you know?
Maybe you don't need to put the shoe on.
It's exhausting.
So remember, you have to present your story like differently. So that's part of it.
I know. But then, okay, that's the problem with like one. That's why we always do like mismatch, because then we kind of get to do something different, right? But like I have a bunch of like one-sided shoe concept shoes that are just for fun. I don't know what the heck to do with them. I kind of just like store them, like toss them around somewhere.
Listen, get a new studio. We'll have a little museum space, and then
we need to have a showroom. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, girl.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, we are way over time, but
thank you for unpacking this. Like, are we bored? The answer. What's the answer? No, we're not bored.
No, we're not bored.
Okay.
Yeah, we are not bored. We'll be sticking around for a while, so please hang out with us more. Anyways, if you like this episode, Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps other people who enjoys this kind of content find this episode.
Yep, exactly. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We love you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Good job.